My name is Nicole. I'm 32 years old and live in a small town about a 50-minute drive from Boston. Every morning, I make myself a cup of espresso, listen to the weather report, then walk to my office just over a block away from home. I'm the co-founder of a biotech startup in the healthcare field, a job that's not easy to explain, especially to people who think office work just means data entry all day. My family never understood what I do, or maybe they never really cared to. To them, I've always been the weird younger sister, the one who dressed simply, never wore much makeup, and was always glued to her laptop or in some meeting. Claire, my older sister, is the one they're proud of. She's 3 years older than me and has always been the perfect daughter in their eyes. Beautiful, graceful, soft-spoken, and charming. Even in family photos, I was just a faint shadow behind Claire's spotlight. On Thanksgiving or Christmas, relatives would gather around her with praise. "Claire, you look stunning in that dress." Or, "Claire, your new boyfriend's a doctor. Impressive." And me? If anyone even remembered I existed, the line was always, "Nicole, yeah, she's doing something in biotech, I think." They spoke as if I were a footnote at the bottom of the page. I used to think if I worked hard enough, if I stayed behind the scenes and carried the load, then one day my parents would finally see me and be proud just like they were of Claire. But no, all the attention, all the expectations, all the compliments, they were always hers. And me? I was always distant, dry, hard to talk to. They never knew I'd stayed at the office until midnight handling a crisis for a public health project worth nearly $2 million, 0 cents. They never asked how it felt to build a company from scratch with 3 college friends. When people ask about my family, I just give a faint smile and say, "We haven't spoken in a while. It's nothing." Not because I'm hiding something, just because there's nothing left to say. We haven't talked in over 2 years. No texts, no calls, no birthday wishes. Just silence, like a broken line nobody bothered to reconnect. I used to believe family was the place you could always return to. But one day, on my mother's birthday, that belief shattered. It was late March. I had just closed a successful funding round with an investment firm from New York. I planned to take 3 days off and fly back early to help my parents prep for Mom's birthday, like I always did. Nothing fancy. I just wanted to help out, like always. When I called to let them know, it was my dad who picked up. "I'm planning to come back early. Let me know if there's anything you need me to pick up or prepare," I said. I still remember his voice. Not angry, just strange. A short pause, then he cleared his throat. "Nicole, if possible, don't come home this year." I froze for a second, thinking maybe he was worried I was too busy with work. "It's okay, Dad. I've already cleared my schedule. I really want to be there." This time, his voice was firm. "Claire is bringing her new boyfriend. He's a CFO. Well-spoken, clearly successful. Your job? Well, it's hard to explain. You showing up would just invite comparisons and make things awkward. So, it's best you stay." I went numb. My chest tightened, a cold sting crawling down my spine. I gripped the phone and said through clenched teeth, "Are you saying I make the family look bad? That I shouldn't come home because I'm an embarrassment?" He didn't take it back. In fact, he doubled down. "If you insist on coming, then don't call me your father." Then he hung up. No hesitation, no second thoughts. My apartment went eerily quiet. The espresso cup in my hand had gone cold. I stared into the empty air like the world had cracked open with a single sentence. I didn't cry. I just sat there. And for the first time in my life, I realized something. I was no longer part of the family I had tried so hard to hold together. I sat there in my familiar armchair by the window, early spring sunlight pouring through the white curtains, unable to warm the chill inside me. My father's words echoed again, clear and final. "If you insist on coming, then don't call me your father." I looked down at my hands. My fingers trembled, not from anger but from something deeper, the breaking point. I had always thought that even if I'd never be loved like Claire, at least I was still their daughter. Turns out, I wasn't. I stood up and walked to my desk. Without hesitation, I opened my laptop and logged into my banking app. For over 2 years, I'd been sending money to my parents every month, covering their electric bill, water, internet, even cable. Nearly $600, 0 cents a month, not counting the extra I'd send when Mom said the fridge broke down or Dad's car needed work. They never asked if I could afford it. They just said, "Claire's struggling after switching jobs. If you can help, that'd be great." And I helped, quietly, as if it were my duty. As if responsibility were some invisible contract I'd signed the moment I started earning. I opened the transaction history and scrolled. The total popped up. $15,720, 0 cents. My heart sank, not because I regretted it, but because even after all of that, I was never enough. I hovered over each bill, electric, water, internet. Click. Then another. Notifications popped up. Auto payment canceled successfully. No alarms, no warnings, just silence. Just like how I'd always existed in my family. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was angry, but because I kept thinking about how everything unfolded. About what my father said. About how my entire family was willing to cast me aside just to impress Claire's new boyfriend, a man I hadn't even met. I'd been compared all my life, but this was the first time I was publicly rejected. As if my existence was an inconvenience. Mom's birthday came quickly. I didn't call. I didn't send a card. I didn't post anything online, not out of spite, but because I couldn't pretend anymore. At exactly 5 p.m., as I sat on my balcony sipping peppermint tea, my phone buzzed. It was my mom. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, then let it go dark. A message came in right after. "Nicole, why is the power out? Can you check for us?" I set down my tea and opened the next message from Dad. "No water, no internet, call the providers, your mom's freaking out." I sat in silence, eyes fixed on the tree line out back. No anger, no pain, just an eerie calm. They didn't ask, "Are you okay?" Not a word about the phone call. They just wanted me to do what I'd always done, clean up the mess. Then came a text from Claire. "The internet's down, guests are coming, and Mom is almost in tears. What's going on?" I picked up my phone and typed. 3 weeks ago, Dad told me if I insisted on coming home, I shouldn't call him my father. I'm just doing what he asked. If this is inconvenient, maybe find someone you're not ashamed to introduce. I didn't send it. I deleted it. Not because I regretted it, but because I knew no matter what I said, they'd only hear what suited them. I set the phone down, leaned back in my chair, and closed my eyes. My little apartment was still and quiet. No complaints, no judgmental looks, no demands. The next day, Claire left a voicemail. "Mom's been crying since last night. Do you know how important yesterday was? My boyfriend met the family for the first time, and everything got ruined. You're so selfish." I listened to the whole message, then turned off my phone. For years, I hadn't been selfish enough. Now it was time. I opened my work email and checked the weekend operations report. One subject line stood out. "New Jersey staff transfer to Boston. Awaiting approval." I opened the attached list, skimmed through the names, and then I stopped. Liam Prescott. That name made my heart skip a beat. I remembered it, because just 3 days ago, my mother had mentioned it. Claire's boyfriend, Liam, works at a major corporation. I squinted at the file. Current position, Head of Finance, New Jersey branch, transferring to Boston HQ. Approver, Nicole Warren, co-founder. I let out a small laugh. Just a reflex. The world was smaller than I thought, and I knew what was coming had only just begun. I sat still in front of my laptop, hand resting on the mouse, my chest hollow, as if someone had taken a piece of my memory I'd clung to for too long. Nearly $16,000, 0 cents. Every cent of it paid by me, month after month, without reminders, without delays. And yet, not once had they said, "Thank you." Not once. I scrolled back through the payment list, the same lines repeating. $192.48, my electricity. $136.72, my water. $248.50, my internet and cable. Month after month, like I was their unpaid family accountant. Unseen, unacknowledged, forgotten. I remembered the last phone call with my mom about a year ago when she called around midnight just to say, "Nicole, the bathroom pipe burst. Can you call someone? Claire's on vacation with her boyfriend. You're the only one left." You're the only one left. It sounded harmless, but it was a bitter truth. I wasn't loved like a daughter. I was just the solution when the ones they truly cared about didn't show up. And now, being told not to come home because my presence didn't look good, I finally understood. All these years, nothing I did was ever received with love. I was only remembered when a bill needed paying or a problem needed fixing, but when I needed something, no one was there. My phone lit up again, a message from my mom. "Nicole, I know yesterday got a little tense, but if you could take care of the internet bill, that would be great. Claire is trying to keep things calm with the guests." I stared at the message like an outsider. No apology, no mention of the cruel rejection from my father. Just another request, like always. I set the phone down without replying. I stepped outside onto the porch, sitting in the wooden chair under the fading April sun. Boston wasn't warm yet, but the crisp air somehow made me feel clearer. I thought about Liam, Claire's new boyfriend, and now my incoming employee. The irony. My family excluded me from Mom's birthday because of him, while he was about to report directly to me. If life were a comedy, this would be its finest punchline. I returned to my desk and opened the email. The subject line stood out. New hire confirmation, Liam Prescott, transfer to Boston office. I clicked on the profile. Everything matched. Age, experience, degrees. A polished resume. Exactly the kind Claire would go for. Educated, established, charming on paper. I looked at the attached photo. Something familiar. Then I remembered. We'd briefly met at a conference about 6 months ago. He shook my hand and politely called me co-founder Warren, but neither of us made the connection. Or rather, I never cared enough about Claire to know who the man beside her was. Now I had a choice. Approve the transfer, or deny it. But I knew I didn't need to do anything. Life had already written the perfect script. I just needed to sit back and see what would happen when Claire found out her boyfriend reported to the sister who embarrassed the family. The next day, Liam arrived at the office. He stepped into mine with a folder, his face slightly tense. When I looked up, his eyes paused on me, then widened in shock. "Nicole?" he asked softly. I smiled faintly, calm and composed. "Welcome to Pacific Genomics. I'll be reviewing the entire financial plan for this quarter. I look forward to working with you." Liam froze. His face flushed, then turned pale. No one in my family knew I co-founded this company. No one had ever asked what I really did. They just assumed I was some low-level desk worker. I said nothing more, just slid the contract toward him. Liam took it and quietly left the room. I leaned back in my chair. I wasn't happy. I wasn't sad. I just felt like the wheel had finally turned. And this time, I didn't have to say a word. The truth had spoken for itself. The morning of my mother's birthday, the Boston sky was unusually gray. A thick fog hung in the air, making everything look blurred, like the world itself was bracing for something to unravel. I poured myself a strong black coffee, sat by the window, and stared at the empty yard. I didn't plan to do anything. No texts, no calls, no birthday post. I just wanted things to play out exactly as they were, without me. At 9 a.m., my phone buzzed. First message from Mom. Nicole, sweetheart, I think the power's out. Can you check for us? It's an important day. I placed the phone face down on the table. Same tone. Sweet, gentle, like nothing had ever happened. Like I hadn't been told by my father that I embarrassed the family and shouldn't show up. 15 minutes later, a second message. This time from Dad. Still no power. Water's not running either. Is something wrong with the payments? Call the provider now. Short, cold, no concern, no mention of me being excluded from the party. Just a command, like I was still their logistics manager. I sighed. For 2 years, I'd never missed a single payment. Electricity, water, internet cable. I canceled them all, one by one, the night my father hung up, and severed everything, because I was hard to introduce. And now, on the very day Claire was introducing her boyfriend to the family, the house was in chaos. No electricity, no water, no internet. Exactly as expected. By 11 a.m., the messages came flooding in. Mom, Nicole, please, I'm begging you. Guests are arriving. Can you just help this once? Dad, no electricity. We can't cook. Where are you? Take care of this now. Claire, seriously, Nicole, today is special. Mom's about to cry. There's no internet. I can't call anyone. I'm losing it here. Can you stop being selfish? I leaned back. My coffee had gone cold. The texts didn't make me feel vindicated. They didn't satisfy me. All I felt was emptiness. A quiet, unwavering emptiness. Then the phone buzzed again. A video call from Aunt Sharon, the only person in the family who still sent holiday messages, even if I rarely responded. I hesitated, then answered. Her old kitchen came into view, lit only by a phone flashlight. She looked tired, eyes slightly red. Nicole, she said softly. Your mom's in a panic. The house is dark, everyone's running around, and no one knows what to do. I said nothing, just looked at her. She paused, then added, not accusing, not defending. What happened? You've never missed your mom's birthday. I know you have your reasons, but say something. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. My dad said I made the family look bad, told me if I insisted on coming, I shouldn't call him my father anymore. What do you think I should do after that? Aunt Sharon froze. Her face changed in an instant. In the background, I heard noise. My mother saying loudly, she's probably just sulking. No one would be heartless enough to do this. Then a sharper voice. Claire, Liam's almost here. Someone call the power company already. I can't believe she did this to us today. I gave a slight, joyless smile. Aunt Sharon heard everything. She didn't defend anyone. Didn't say a word. And then, unexpectedly, the screen shifted. A new face entered the frame. Liam. Same neat suit, same polished expression as in his resume. He stared at the screen and blurted out, almost involuntarily, Nicole? Everyone went silent. You're Nicole Warren, the one who runs Pacific Genomics? I nodded, eyes steady. A long pause. Then Liam turned to everyone in the room. She's my direct superior. And the one who approved my transfer to Boston. Stunned silence. Claire's jaw dropped. My parents froze. No one said a word. I calmly replied, hope your introduction today goes well. Then I ended the call. After the call, I set my phone down without another word. Outside the window, the dim afternoon light filtered weakly through the thick gray clouds. Everything around me was so quiet, it barely felt real. No voices, no follow-up texts, no calls. Just me and a strange, weightless sense of relief, after a truth revealed, not by me, but by them. I didn't need to expose anyone, I just stayed silent, and let everything unfold exactly as it was meant to. Liam had confirmed it clearly. I was his superior, the co-founder of Pacific Genomics, the company they assumed I was just some desk worker for. In that moment, my family's kitchen became a stage where the masks fell, one by one, and no one could stop them. And Claire, my sister, the one who once whispered to Mom that Nicole should pick a job that's easier to introduce, now stood frozen beside a birthday cake that hadn't even been lit. She had tried so hard to impress her boyfriend with empty compliments and a picture-perfect family, but in the end, it was that very boyfriend who called me boss in front of everyone. I could picture the scene like I was watching a replay. My mother, so flustered she nearly dropped the cake tray. My father, red-faced, gripping the edge of the table. And the relatives, those who only showed up for food and judgment, sitting in stunned silence, eyes darting around as they tried to process what just happened. And Aunt Sharon still had the call going, her gaze no longer curious, but something closer to respect. She didn't say much, just gave me a small nod before ending the call. That evening, I got the first message from Claire. Long, messy, a mix of anger and desperation. You knew all along, didn't you? You let it happen right during the party? Mom's been crying all night. Liam doesn't even know how to react. Don't you think that was cruel, Nicole? I watched the message pop up on my screen, but didn't open it right away. I made a cup of ginger tea and sat on the couch, letting the steam ease the tightness in my throat. I didn't feel joy, but I didn't feel guilty either. After about 10 minutes, I finally hit reply. Just a few lines, no need for more. You say I was cruel? I was just at home. I didn't start the video call. I didn't call myself his boss. I didn't do anything. And if a single truth was enough to ruin the whole party, maybe that party was never built on anything solid in the first place. I hit send. I wasn't waiting for a reply. Half an hour later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was my mom. The message was short. I never expected you to choose this way to get back at the family. I closed my eyes and leaned back in my chair. Get back? Is that what they thought this was? I just remembered being shut out of a family event, having my role as a daughter dismissed because my job wasn't impressive enough. I remembered quietly paying dozens of bills over 2 years without a single check-in. I remembered trying so hard to be accepted, to be loved, and now I was done trying. Around 10 p.m., I got an email from Liam. Nicole, I'm sorry I didn't know sooner. I truly respect you for your work and for the way you stayed silent today. I've never felt more ashamed, but not because of you. I read it, then replied slowly. Liam, you don't need to apologize. Everyone is responsible for how they choose to see others. And don't worry, I never bring family matters into work, but I hope you understand now. Sometimes silence is the greatest strength. I clicked send, turned off my screen, and placed the phone face down on the table. Tomorrow, I'd still go to the office like usual. There would be reports to review, meetings to prepare for, and a world still turning outside. Only now there was one difference. Starting today, the ones who once dismissed me, finally knew who I was. And without a single shout, without any accusations, I had made them go silent. The next morning, as I walked into my office, sunlight filtered through the glass panels, casting a warm golden glow across the room. The air was calm, as if the universe had given me a few quiet minutes to breathe before the day's noise returned. I sat at my desk, powered on my computer, and opened my email as usual. In the priority inbox, there was one unread message. Sender, Liam Prescott. I clicked it. Subject, apology. And goodbye. Nicole, I don't know where to start, but after last night I couldn't sleep. I've been thinking, what happened probably shouldn't have happened in front of so many people, but at the same time, I feel a strange sense of clarity, especially about you. I'm not ashamed that you're Claire's sister. I'm ashamed that I didn't see her true self sooner. I can't stay in a relationship where basic respect doesn't exist. As of today, I'm ending things with Claire. Thank you for staying silent yesterday. And thank you for the way you lead. Quiet but strong and fair. Liam. I read it twice, then leaned back in my chair. I wasn't happy that Claire got dumped. I just felt something. Right. Like for the first time, someone outside finally saw what I'd been living with for years. The things I was told I was too sensitive about, or too cold for staying quiet about. I didn't reply. There was no need. But about 2 hours later, as I was reviewing the financial summary from the finance team, my phone lit up. A message from Claire. Nicole, I know you're busy, but please, can you talk to Liam for me? He's misunderstanding everything. I looked at the message, calm and unmoved. I didn't reply right away. Less than 5 minutes later, another message came through. You're his boss. You have influence. If you say something, he'll reconsider. I stood up and walked over to the window, gazing down at the busy street below. All those years, I had wished for just one message from Claire checking in when I was hurting, one word of encouragement when I failed. But there was nothing. And now that her relationship had crumbled, the person she turned to was me. Not to apologize, but to fix it. I returned to my desk and typed, Liam didn't leave because of anything I said. He left because of who you are. And maybe for the first time, he really saw it. Claire didn't reply immediately, but about an hour later, a new message arrived. You're right. But I really don't want to lose him. I'll change this time, please. Just this once. I didn't respond, not because I was angry, but because I was past the point of explaining. When I left the office that evening, the early spring breeze was still chilly, but the sunset cast a deep orange glow across the rooftops. I walked to the parking lot slowly, without hurry, without worry. Maybe for the first time in years, I felt light. I hadn't sought revenge. I had simply lived my truth and let the rest reveal itself. Claire had brought this ending on herself, and Liam, once dazzled by the facade of a perfect family, had finally seen the foundation beneath, the one I had lived on most of my life. That night, I played an old playlist, the kind of music that used to make me feel invisible during my early startup days. But tonight, the melodies sounded like a quiet affirmation. I had stepped out of the shadows. Not by yelling, but by standing firm. And that's what Claire, or anyone else in my family, had never seen coming. I didn't need validation anymore. I just needed to be myself and live what I truly deserve. About a week after things calmed down, on a rare Sunday afternoon when I decided not to touch my laptop, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and I almost ignored it. But something made me glance through the peephole. My parents were standing at the gate. I stood still for a few seconds, letting my mind catch up with what I was seeing. My mom held a small bag, her face tired. My dad had his arms crossed, his eyes less stern than during our last call, but still carrying that usual hardness. I opened the door. Said nothing. Hi, honey, my mom said first, her voice raspy like she'd just gotten off a long flight. Can we come in and talk for a bit? I silently stepped aside to let them in. No hugs, no warm greetings, just a heavy silence stretching from the hallway to the living room. I poured some water, set down 2 glasses, and sat across from them. My mom glanced around the apartment, simple, tidy, and completely untouched by any presence of my parents. My dad spoke first. About your mom's birthday, I said some things I shouldn't have. I stayed quiet. He looked at me, then continued, slower this time. Maybe we've been a little hard on you. Claire's been a mess since the breakup, and your mom's been crying nonstop, so we wanted to sit down and talk like a family. I still said nothing, just nodded slightly. I wanted to see where they were going with this. I was used to the long build-up before they got to what they really came for. Just as I expected, my mom jumped in right after. Well, we actually have a proposal. She hesitated, then placed the bag on the table and pulled out a printed sheet. We've thought it through. You're stable now, your job is great, If possible, we're hoping you could help us with a monthly contribution, around $2,000 0 cents. Just enough to cover living costs, insurance, and some retirement savings. I looked up at her. $2,000 a month? My dad jumped in, as if afraid I'd misunderstand. It's not much for someone in your position. We're family, Nicole. I sat up straighter and kept my tone steady. What about Claire? My mom hesitated. She's not doing well after the breakup. She's down. Work's not going great. We can't pressure her. I let out a soft laugh, not out of bitterness, just because it was all so familiar. Claire was always the one who couldn't be pressured, and I was always the one who could handle it. I looked directly at them. If Claire agrees to contribute her part, $1,000, 0 cents a month, I'll cover the other half. If not, I'll need a legal contract, one that clearly states when you both pass, all assets, including the house, will belong to me. Silence filled the room. My father furrowed his brow, his face flushing red. Are you seriously giving your own parents conditions? I didn't blink. Not conditions, principles. I already spent nearly $16,000, 0 cents, on this family over 2 years without anyone ever acknowledging it. If you want me to continue, then things need to be clear. My mother turned to my father, her voice starting to waver. Maybe we should talk it over? But he shot up from his seat, slamming his hand against the wooden table, making the glasses rattle. We raised her for over 20 years, and now, when we ask for a little help, she demands a contract? Unbelievable. I stayed seated, my eyes locked on him. Dad, I don't owe you. If you think raising me was some kind of investment that needs a return, we can calculate it, line by line. But I won't pay for it with silence anymore. He looked like he wanted to argue, but froze, lips pressed tight. My mother stood up and gently tugged at his arm. Let's go. I stood too, walking them to the door. No hugs, no goodbyes. When the door closed behind them, all that remained was the soft breeze drifting in from the balcony. In that stillness, I knew another chapter had ended, and this time I was the one who wrote the final line. After that day, my parents never reached out again. No calls, no messages, no accusations, not even an apology for the outburst that had hit my home like a storm. As if every disappointment in their lives had been caused by their difficult daughter. But I wasn't surprised. I'd grown used to that kind of silence, the kind that didn't come from shame or remorse, but simply from people who don't know how to speak when they're no longer in control. I kept living my life, quiet mornings with coffee, strategic meetings that ran late into the evening, signing deals with partners who once doubted a young woman could run a biotech company. And through it all, I stopped feeling guilty. I stopped thinking I was wrong for saying no to being the backup wallet, the default caretaker, just because I could handle it. Because eventually you have to understand, love can't be measured in monthly payments, and it can't be forced through a sense of duty. If affection only exists as long as the bills are paid, then it's not family. It's a transaction. I started cutting the invisible strings that tied me to the roles they had assigned me. I no longer used a family photo as my phone wallpaper. I didn't remember Claire's birthday. I didn't mark the holidays to send a little something. I no longer hovered over guilt-ridden messages. I learned to put the period myself, instead of waiting for them to start with an apology. One day, during a team meeting, Liam, now officially our company's head of finance, walked in with an investment report. He worked with focus, professionalism, and always kept a respectful distance. We never talked about Claire, not once, and I appreciated that. Some things, when fully understood, are best left unspoken. That afternoon, as I left the office, it was drizzling. I stopped by a familiar cafe, choosing a seat by the window. On the wall was a carved wooden sign. Home is not always a place. Sometimes, it's a choice. I sat there, sipping a hot latte, reflecting on the path I'd taken. There was a time when I believed that if I just stayed quiet, gentle, and responsible enough, I would eventually be accepted. But the truth is, if you let people get used to disrespecting you, they'll start seeing your sacrifices as obligations and your silence as agreement. I chose to stand up, not to go against my family, but to protect myself. I chose to set boundaries, not because I'm selfish, but because I finally understood. Self-worth can't be defined by someone else's pity or sudden needs. And if someone were to ask me, Nicole, do you regret not helping your parents when they needed you? My answer would be, I regret that it took me so long to realize I deserved more than that. Because real family is where you're seen as a whole person, not a wallet, not a stand-in, not the fallback plan for people who always put you last. I know my story might be hard for some people to accept. In our society, refusing family duty is often seen as ungrateful. But try stepping into my shoes, the daughter who was shut out for not being polished enough to introduce, the one who paid tens of thousands in silence and never once heard, "Are you okay?" I didn't choose family in the traditional sense. I chose myself. What about you? Do you think I was too cold? Or did I finally learn how to love myself at the right time? Share your thoughts in the comments, because sometimes your story might be the light someone else needs when they're struggling between duty and freedom. And if you've ever felt alone in your own family, believe me, you're not. Nicole's story is a powerful reminder that no one is obligated to sacrifice themselves for a relationship that only carries the label family but lacks respect. When you learn to set boundaries, choose self-love, and stop letting your kindness be taken for granted, that's not selfishness. That's growth. Nicole didn't seek revenge. She chose dignified silence to reaffirm her worth. And sometimes the firmest action is the very first step to real peace. What do you think of Nicole's choice? Was she too harsh? Or was she simply protecting herself after years of being hurt? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more deep and meaningful stories about family.